Once again, I open this Bible I took from the dying priest. As always, it serves as more than just a relic. It is a tool, a weapon in my hands, forged to cut through the illusions of this world. When the world babbles on about fasting, about spiritual practices they neither understand nor embody, I look deeper. I have seen the world in its mediocrity, drowning in its hollow rituals and false devotions. It is easy to mimic, easy to patch up old habits with new, hoping no one notices the cracks. But that's not how this works. That's not how I work. Today, I find myself drawn to the passage in Matthew 9:14-17, Jesus' discussion about fasting. The disciples of John, likely puffed up with self-righteousness, approached Jesus and asked, "Why don't your disciples fast like we and the Pharisees do?" There it is, already the flaw in their question. They are concerned with appearances, with doing what they believe is right in the eyes of man. They follow tradition, blind to its hollow core, seeking validation from others for their acts of devotion. But Jesus, as he always does, strips the conversation bare. He replies, "Do wedding guests mourn while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast." That's the difference between Christ's way and the way of the world. He was never interested in superficial gestures. He cared about the core, about what truly drives transformation. And that's the essence of this lesson. Fasting, meditation, rituals, they are tools, not trophies. Yet people cling to them like banners, showing off their piety. But I know the truth. Without understanding the purpose, without grounding oneself in the true way, all of these gestures are meaningless. I see it everywhere. The world prides itself on appearances, on playing the part of righteousness. They fast, they pray, they chant, but do they change? Do they strip themselves bare and let go of the flawed conditioning that binds them to mediocrity? They only want the appearance of holiness without the substance. They want to patch their broken lives with new cloth, ignoring the fundamental tear in their spirit. But patching an old garment doesn't fix it. It only worsens the tear. You can't pour new wine into old wineskins, as Jesus says, because the skins will burst, spilling the wine and ruining both. What they fail to realize, what this passage makes clear, is that before you can receive anything new, you must first be emptied of the old. You must empty yourself of the lies, the ego, the societal conditioning that has shaped you into a mere reflection of your environment. You must die to yourself. This is where real transformation begins. But that requires a level of honesty, of self-awareness, that most people refuse to embrace. Look at them, clinging to their routines, their habits, their false identities, thinking that they are progressing, thinking that they are changing. Yet all they do is slap another layer of pretense onto a fundamentally broken foundation. You can't build greatness on top of mediocrity. You can't reach godhood by clinging to the parts of yourself that are designed to keep you weak. When the disciples of John questioned Jesus, they were like children asking why they couldn't play with the same toys as their neighbors. They couldn't see the bigger picture, couldn't understand that fasting wasn't the point. It was the transformation that mattered. The same applies to all those who fast today, thinking that deprivation alone brings them closer to God. What they fail to understand is that fasting is a tool to empty yourself, to create space for something far greater. But what happens when you empty yourself without filling the void? The demons return fiercer than before, needing to make up for lost time. People fast, meditate, and pursue spiritual rituals while still clinging to the flawed conditioning of their initial environment. They refuse to let go of the weak, habitual responses they've developed to survive. They hold on to the version of themselves that was crafted to cope with a life they've outgrown. They try to serve two masters, the old and the new, and end up conflicted, broken, and ultimately ineffective. They fast, but they don't understand why. They pray, but their words fall flat. They meditate, but their minds are cluttered with distractions. They think that by engaging in the act, they have fulfilled some spiritual obligation. But the truth is, without stripping away the old, without clearing the space for the divine, they are just going through the motions. They are playing a game they don't even understand. And the consequences? Self-sabotage. They delude themselves into thinking they're evolving, but they're simply rebranding the same tired behaviors and mindsets. They refuse to undergo the true transformation required to receive Christ's teachings fully. They refuse to put in the work to empty themselves. Instead, they want to patch their broken lives with quick fixes, with fasting, with prayer, with superficial gestures. But you can't deceive the divine. You can't expect to hold on to your old life and receive the benefits of a new one. Bruce Lee once said, "The usefulness of a cup is in its emptiness." You cannot fill a cup that's already full. You cannot embrace mastery if you refuse to let go of your false self. The divine wisdom that Christ offers, the teachings that lead to true power, cannot coexist with the flawed, ego-driven version of you. That's what the Pharisees and the disciples of John couldn't understand. They were clinging to their old wineskins, trying to pour new wine into them, thinking it would work. But it doesn't. To truly embrace the way of God, to embody Christ's teachings, you must empty yourself completely. You must rid yourself of everything you think you know, everything you've been taught, every instinct and response that comes from the flawed conditioning of your environment. Only then can you be filled with something new, something that has the power to transform you from the inside out. This is why Christ said the wedding guests don't mourn while the groom is with them. There was no need for his disciples to fast because they were in the presence of the embodiment of God's wisdom. They were being filled, not with rules and rituals, but with the essence of the divine. Only when Christ was gone would they need to fast, to create that space to reconnect with the source. But fasting, meditation, or any spiritual practice is useless unless it serves to purge you of the old, unless it serves to empty the cup to make space for the new. People fast to feel righteous, to feel like they're doing something spiritual, but their minds remain cluttered, their souls remain untouched. They fast, yet they refuse to let go of the things that hold them back, their egos, their conditioning, their flawed habits. People hate change. They resist it because change implies inadequacy. To admit that you need to change is to admit that something about you is lacking. But this is the first step toward mastery, recognizing that you are incomplete, flawed, and in need of transformation. Yet, most people would rather patch their old lives than tear down the structure completely and rebuild it the right way. They cling to old patterns, repeating the same mistakes over and over again, expecting different results. They refuse to confront the truth of their mediocrity, their stagnation. Instead, they blame everything outside of themselves. It's always someone else's fault. It's always the world that needs to change, not them. But here's the truth. You are the problem, not the world, not your circumstances, not your past. You've been conditioned by a broken environment, shaped by flawed thinking, and now you cling to that conditioning as if it's a lifeline. But it's a noose around your neck, strangling your potential. To change, to evolve, to become something greater, you must first admit that you are wrong, that your approach is wrong, that everything you've done up until now has been rooted in failure. And only then can you begin the process of stripping away the old and making room for the new. This is where people get it wrong. They think that following Christ's teachings means adopting rituals, prayers, fasting, and meditation. But they miss the point. Christ's way isn't about the ritual. It's about what the ritual represents. It's about the transformation of the mind, body, and spirit. It's about mastery. You want to be a follower of Christ? Fine. But that means putting aside everything you think you know. It means dying to your old self, your ego, your conditioning. It means stripping away the layers of falsehood that you've wrapped yourself in and standing bare before the divine. People love the idea of fasting because it feels spiritual. It feels like they're sacrificing something, like they're doing the work. But they're not. True sacrifice isn't about giving up food for a few days. It's about giving up the version of yourself that's holding you back. It's about sacrificing your ego, your conditioning, your old way of thinking, so that you can be filled with something greater. Fasting isn't about deprivation. It's about making space. This is the ultimate truth that people don't want to face. The old you and the new you cannot exist in the same body. You cannot hold on to your old life, your old ways of thinking, and expect to reach mastery. You must first kill the old you, strip it away, tear it down completely, so that there is room for the new you to emerge. This is why Jesus spoke of new wine and old wineskins. You can't put new wisdom into a body and mind still clinging to old habits and conditioning. It will tear you apart. You must first become empty so that you can be filled. And here's the harsh truth. Most people aren't willing to do this. They want the benefits of Christ's teachings without the sacrifice. They want the new wine, but they refuse to get rid of the old wineskins. And so they fail again and again, patching up their lives with temporary fixes, but never truly changing. But I've seen the truth. I felt the power that comes from stripping away the old, from becoming empty, from making room for something greater. And I can tell you this, nothing in this world compares to the power of true transformation. Nothing compares to the strength that comes from mastering yourself, from embodying the divine. If you've stumbled upon this journal, know this. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot live as your flawed, conditioned self and expect to embrace the way of God. You must first die to that old self. You must empty your cup. Only then can you be filled with divine wisdom, with power, with mastery. It's time to stop patching up the old with the new. It's time to stop pretending that superficial rituals can replace true transformation. If you want to walk the path of Christ, if you want to reach godhood, then you must be willing to strip away everything that holds you back. You must become empty. Only then can you be filled. The question is, are you ready to let go? Or will you keep clinging to your old wineskin, hoping that somehow, this time, it won't burst? This is the truth. This is the way. The choice is yours. And always remember that we are warriors. We are champions. We are gods.